Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's The In Show, Australia's only show dedicated to innovation from Adelaide, Australia and across the globe.
It's David Grice and Troy Sincock. We're talking innovation, startups, entrepreneurs, people with extraordinary ideas that are up for changing our lives for the better and the journeys that they've taken to get there.
Yeah, and look, today you ventured into a world that I'm very passionate about, and that's wine.
I've noticed you do enjoy a drop.
I do, and where's my bottle? Oh, you should have brought me back something.
You know what, that opportunity slipped through my fingers. I honestly didn't even think about it, and I think it's because what we were talking about were the innovations at the winery. This thing is absolutely extraordinary, and so is this man. He loves wearing colour. In every photo you ever see, he's either wearing this, floral shirt or something crazy. Very expressive guy who's, up to some big things that are about to change the world.
Chester Osborne's an extraordinary man. He started work in the family's D'Arenberg winery at 7 years old, getting paid 10 cents an hour. And now, after half a century in the vineyard, an idea he came up with in 2003 has actually come to reality. It's called the D'Arenberg Cube.
Yeah, it's a $14 million mind-bending innovation inspired by the complexities and puzzles of winemaking. So, Chester, this cube has had a huge impact.
Yeah, I've sort of made the new benchmark for how we educate people in the wine industry, I suppose, and entertain them probably more than educate. They can be educated if they want as they go through the building, or they can just be entertained. But I wanted to tell the real D'Arenberg story and the 4 generations that we've been there developing it. And I thought the best way to make this happen was through art and through this alternate realities museum and a building, obviously, that is hopefully beautiful. As several people have said to me, they think it's really beautiful. I was a bit obsessive that I thought it was, but even my father likes it now, so that's saying something, I think. He's 91 years old, and he didn't really think it was ever going to look any good, but he's really quite amazed and very complimentary now.
It's an extraordinary innovation in terms of what it's meant for D'Arenberg, but also the entire wine region in South Australia and tourism as a whole. Has it had greater impact than you expected it to? And can you tell me, what was your intention in the first instance?
I suppose my first intention was to attract a lot of people and to tell the story of D'Arenberg, as I say, and hopefully one day sell more wine and more expensive wines, because we do a fairly elaborate way of winemaking, quite old-fashioned, but with modern thinking and so biodynamic or organic, those sorts of things. Whatever. So telling that whole story is difficult, but in a humorous way. So I suppose that's what I was aiming to do, and we have managed to achieve a lot. I think I got a lot more press than I ever imagined, and the numbers have been really fantastic through the building, and the staffing has been a challenge because there's a lot of people to look after, but that's worked really well. And then of course we've got the restaurant, which the D'Arenberg Cube restaurant is really quite way out, and again working on alternate realities. Things aren't what they seem when you're in there and you're challenged, and it's quite very entertaining. But small tasting menu styles of very elaborate style of cooking, equipment that I didn't know existed. There's so much equipment. In fact, we've also got the first 3D printer in 3D printing of food in the Southern Hemisphere that we're doing one of the courses with, which is quite wild. But it's all amazing, and it's beautiful how many people are embracing it, and the positivity I'm getting back from the restaurant and everything, or the whole building.
It's an extraordinary innovation. Tell me about how the idea came to you and what it's taken to have it become a reality.
Yeah, well, it came to me in a bit of a flash. I suppose I was going to build all old colonial stuff like the old homestead is there. Yep. And then one day I just went, who wants to really come and see fake old colonial stuff? And what's it going to be, the draw card? And I went, I need something that really encapsulates D'Arenberg, the essence of what D'Arenberg's about, which our label names are such a puzzle to work out. We're quirky and we like to have a lot of fun with them. And wine is such a puzzle to work out. I went, what's the most iconic puzzle? And a Rubik's Cube is, I thought the most iconic. And then I went, well, yeah, we could do that in the vineyard. And then I went, colours, it's going to be hard to do. I went, oh, no, we'll put puzzles on the outside instead. So it's like a puzzle on top of puzzles. And then I started drawing it. I went, it needs twisting and blocks pulled out, one up, one. We need something in the car park to replace the old tin shed shed that's in there, the boar shed, and so one's fallen out. And I made it out of baseball holders, little plastic cubes. Made it all in a little vineyard with little soldiers in there and ambulances and police cars and fire engines and whatever. And I presented it to the board, my father and his brother and sister, and they said, don't like the look of that. And they were really quite negative and quite degrading of the whole thing. Although my uncle said, if winemaking doesn't work out for you, then you could always become a model maker. He thought the model was really good. Yeah. But it took a long time to get them over the mark, quite some years. And really, I probably didn't get them over the mark. It was more a case of they said, my father said, well, you'd never be able to build a building like this. And I said, well, why don't I try? And he thought he wouldn't be able to. Of course, the builder said, yes, he can. And then the next thing he said was, well, you'll never get approval for it up here on the hill. And I said, well, why don't I try? And it took a year to get through council, but there weren't any objections really. And so it happened. And so, of course, that was 15 years ago that all started that process. And we were going to build it in 2009. But the crash of 2008 really put the cat amongst the pigeons, the global financial crisis. Mm-hmm. And profitability in the wine industry had gone out. Our debt had gone up quite a lot because we bought quite a few vineyards in McLaren Vale in the previous years. And so we went, well, we really can't. It's too risky to build. Mm. We managed to claw back a fair bit of debt over the next 5 years and said, well, I think the numbers stack up now. Tourism had even got bigger. Our brand experiences, people wanting experiences out there, tasting experiences, blending experiences, paid experiences, not just going to the tasting room and having a glass of wine. That was really growing rapidly, and so it was very appropriate timing that we build something that really attracted people, and hence we went, well, let's do it. Now, the really crazy thing about all of that is that it was very fortunate because the building wasn't actually buildable back in 2009 because the facade is half in the sun and half covered up with the white pattern. And so normal glass would explode because of the temperature difference. So you have to get double tempered glass. And that wasn't available in 2009 in big format glass. It was only until 2014 that became available. Now, the quirky thing about that is that we got building codes of 2010 that we were working on the whole time. We kept the building approvals alive for those next years. And in 2014, we wouldn't have been actually be able to build that amount of glass in the sun because the energy efficiency codes changed 10% every year, got harder and harder and harder. And so the building wouldn't have been buildable legally. So there was no one point in time where this building was actually buildable. So it's quite quirky. It had to happen exactly when it did.
That's absolutely amazing. What I love is that, the overall concept is an innovation itself, but you've had to utilise innovations on the run to be able to enable you to execute this. So can you tell me more about, the special features of this building that makes it so special?
Well, it's very complex for a start because the base is all set back in. So you've got 4 stories with these huge cantilevers, and then the top 2 stories turned, again, more cantilever. And the very top story, we've got 3 blocks pulled right out, another 2 metres, a bit over 2 metres. So the overhang's enormous in there, and that happens to be where the missing cube is underneath it. So there's a big area where there's no supports. And so
I suppose, just to interrupt you there, for those that haven't seen a picture of the d'Arenberg Cube, it is, as you described, it's like a Rubik's Cube that's in sort of motion of being turned. So it's not like it's not a cube per se. It's like each of the different levels the Rubik's Cube are sort of shifted around.
Yeah, exactly. So the bottom, it's a 4x4 cube toy, if you imagine. And normally when you're twisting, you would only twist one of the levels at once, whereas we've got actually the 2 top ones are twisted.
Yep.
And the blocks pulled out halfway on the second floor, one on each facing, which, of course, you can't do on a toy like that. So it's slightly different in that respect.
And so, so there was innovation required for the building to look a certain way and to be able to be mobile as well. And then the experience within, like you talked about, the 3D printing of the food that's happening inside. You have had to use this glass that wasn't available until 5 years ago. You've had to wait for technology to sort of catch up to your idea. Yeah. Is there anything else like that within the building itself?
Pretty much everyone who worked on the building, the builders, all of the facade people, all the engineers, the architects, and any contractor I had working for me said most of the time, no, you can't do such and such. And I'd go off and I'd come back and I'd draw what I think they could do to actually get around their problems. And they would say, maybe it could be done. It's never been done though, but maybe it could be done, but it'll cost you a lot. And I said, it won't cost a lot. It's just a bit of designing, and then it goes off to the fabricators. It's not going to be a problem. They said, yeah, all right. And every one of them said it was the most difficult building they've ever worked on, but an enjoyable one. They all have been great, the people who've been working on it. Things like the door, as you walk up to it, there's this door that twists open. So it's very difficult to describe, but it's in four corners, I suppose, 4 squares, and the squares are like origami, that you've moved that bit of paper that you have all your fingers in back and forth.
Yep.
And so the verticals become the horizontals when it's in the open position.
Gotcha.
And then the horizontals become back into the vertical when it's in close, and it comes out at you a metre while it's folding diagonally. It's really hard to describe, but it's quite quirky. And then as you look first in, you see a reverse perspective art piece, which not many people have ever seen. And when you rock on your feet from side to side, left to right, you'll see the floor of the winery. It's basically the open fermenters and basket press area on the top. You'll see the walls moving. As you move a little bit, the whole thing's moving, and it really plays with your mind. And when you get closer, you realise it's because it's a reverse perspective art piece. And it's, again, working on this idea of alternate realities, because it's not real. It's not the way you perceive it.
So really, while it was a massive challenge, what you've been able to do is push people to look beyond their own boundaries. And now that it's complete, there must be such an enormous level of satisfaction from everyone involved that they've had to extend themselves in that way.
Yeah, it is. In fact, it's quite weird, actually, having worked for so many years on the concepts inside the building and with people, and been quite a buzz and all the energy it takes. And now it's almost finished. There's still actually quite a bit of artworks that we're still installing all the time and finishing off, but it's not far off. It's sort of like, well, what's my next project, Yeah. And I do have quite a few lined up, but right now it's vintage time, so I'm sort of flat out with vines and well, the interviews and all of those sorts of things, the media and all the people who want to say hello when you open something like this takes up a fair bit of time too. But I've got ideas coming up, but I can't say them yet. I don't want to give my father a heart attack just yet.
So, tell me, what was it that had you so resolute with your vision and really just stand there for getting the outcome that you wanted when you were met with so much opposition? What had you see it through?
I really believed strongly that this was the best thing that we could do by a million miles. It was just obvious as hell to me, and I suppose the older generation didn't see that for whatever reason. And being fairly Asperger's, then I get very fixated on my concepts and ideas, and you would just have to have it, and you like a dog at a bone, and then everyone said, but an art gallery as well. I mean, this is you're not an artist. And I said, well, I am, but I haven't exhibited much, but I've got masses of ideas that I've been doing over the years with painting and sculpting and whatever. A lot of them either got thrown out or didn't quite finish. But funnily enough, I went, well, I really have to do this, or else it's going to look pretty bad if I don't do all these collages. So unfortunately, I had a huge team of my maintenance department and other people who have been working on it the whole time, and I've just been directing all of these installations. But now it's come right round, and so I feel fantastic actually that the building's there, and people are so positive and complimentary.
Tell me about your Asperger's, and because your self-awareness is really high. Like it's very clear that you know that you've got something going on. Do you see yourself as different to other people? I
certainly knew I was different growing up, but I didn't know why, and I didn't think it was a problem, and I didn't think that anyone was the same as anyone else. So I didn't really worry about it at all. We were all different. I went to a boarding school, and you got to know boys very, very closely, and every one of them was different. So it really didn't matter, and I didn't realise that I was probably a lot more different, if that makes any sense, than what other people were sometimes. And I didn't really realise why I had dyslexia and Asperger's until quite a lot later when I did the tests and went, oh, that explains a lot. And then people said to me, yeah, we knew. We always knew. I was like, oh, great, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But I suppose they weren't going to tell me, whatever. But Asperger's is not a negative. It's a positive because you focus on things so well without giving in easily, and you just get fixated on how you're going to solve the problem so well. And it's more positive than a negative.
Has there been anything as part of that where you've felt stopped or has got in the way? No, I don't think there has been that. So I don't think anything's got in the way of that. I mean, maybe I get a little bit short with people occasionally. I'm actually not very aggressive, really, but I keep saying to them, "This is it," and maybe I am a bit too fixated. Maybe some people, I could have given in occasionally to other people. I don't know. I mean, in the end, it all works out, so it's not a problem. But it'd be rude of me to say that I was always right. That's Darrenberg winemaker Chester Osborne. You can check out the Darrenberg Cube in McLaren Vale, South Australia. On the next In-Show podcast, we're going to hear more inspiring words from someone who's really moved us.
Yeah, Jana Matthews is from Uni SA's Centre for Business Growth. And she actually, when she came into the studio, she 3 weeks earlier had a 3D printed knee replacement.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, unbelievable. So she's going to talk about how 3D printing is going to change our lives.
That's on the next In-Show podcast.
The In-Show Interview. Subscribe to the In-Show podcast on iTunes. A Dave and the Beanstalk production.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.